Hey guys, welcome back. So this week we're going to focus on literary analysis, and our focus will be on the novel Great Expectations. Okay, so literary analysis, our purpose for that is to carefully examine and evaluate a work of literature, okay, or an aspect of a work of literature. So this is different from something you've done before, probably with book reports, okay, where you're simply telling what happens in the story or telling if you liked the story or not, or what you liked about the story. This is different because you're breaking down the subject into different components, okay? You're examining the different elements of a piece of literature, okay? And this is kind of a process to help you better understand and appreciate the work of literature as a whole. So this is something that you should do even if you're not assigned, even if you're just reading for fun, you really should analyze, okay, and look below the plot, look below surface level material to try to find deeper meanings, themes, other literary elements. Um, so, for instance, analysis of a poem might deal with the different types of images in a poem or with the relationship between the form and content of the work. Okay, if you're going to analyze a play, you might analyze the relationship between the subplot and the main plot, or analyze a character flaw of a tragic hero, or analyzing a short story could include identifying a particular theme. Okay, so the difficulty of making the transition from adolescence to adulthood, that could be a theme, and showing how the writer suggests that theme through the point of view from which the story is told. Or you might also explain how the main character's attitude, toward XYZ is revealed through his dialogue and or actions. So those are the kinds of things that we're going for with literary analysis. So the first thing that you have to do, obviously, is you have to read the story. You have to do that first reading and go through and make sure that you understand what's going on and understand the plot. Then you're going to do a close reading. So with a close reading, you're looking at point of view, you're looking at characters, characterization, character traits, you're making a claim or an observation. So what is your thesis? You're going to have a thesis for this. What is your claim about this? Okay, so you could have similes, metaphors. So this character represents this in life, or this scene represents something else, okay? Or you're looking at literary devices. So this is an example of imagery, or Dickens uses imagery to this effect. So it has to be something that you prove. It can't be, this character's name is, or this character dies at the end of the story, or this story is about a poor person. Okay, those are self-evident. We want things that you have to prove, okay? So thinking about Great Expectations. So Great Expectations is one of my favorite novels. Okay, so it was written in the late 1850s. Okay, I'm sorry, actually 1865. It's completed 1861, 1861. Dickens is writing that, and then it is completed. So it's over 150 years old, but very applicable to today. And Charles Dickens, you think about British authors, he's probably like number 2 or number 3, right? You've got Shakespeare, you've got people like Jane Austen, okay, Chaucer, others, but Dickens very much in anyone's top 5 as far as British authors. His themes typically were kind of these social justice themes, okay, and problems in society, and looking at those and how do we deal with those. So very much Great Expectation is about that. So Dickens often sets his novels in and around London. So in the second half of the novel in Great Expectations, Pip, the main character, will be in London. And Dickens, as I said, always focusing on social justice issues as far as poverty, okay, which Dickens himself had experienced at a young age. He has to start work. His father is sent to a debtor's prison, and so Dickens is having to work to support his family. He gets into newspapers, publishing magazines, installment publishing, and that's something that you can kind of see traces of in his writing, such as Great Expectations, because typically at the end of a chapter, there will be a cliffhanger, like something really big or traumatic will happen, and so you're like, oh, I want to get to the next chapter. Well, that was by design because they would have these installments in magazines. So books like Great Expectations will come out a couple chapters at a time in that magazine, and of course, if you leave it with a cliffhanger, then the reader has to buy the next installment. They have to buy that next issue of the magazine to see what happens. If you don't have those cliffhangers and just give them the plot, then they're happy with just that one issue or a couple issues. So very much cliffhangers at the end of each chapter. So you'll see that. Great Expectations is a Bildungsroman tale, okay, or a coming of age tale. It's first person perspective. So you got Pip, the main character, starts out as a young boy. By the end of the novel, he is a man. So it's this coming of age tale with him. And so Pip, goes through a lot of adventures in this, and there's a lot of, kind of colorful characters, which is another characteristic of Dickens, is having these caricatures of people with funny names and with funny details and idiosyncrasies. If you've seen the movie that came out a few years ago, The Man Who Invented Christmas, that is about Charles Dickens writing A Christmas Carol, which I'm sure all of you are familiar with, and how he wrote that story. And it talks about Dickens, and you see him, he's got this notebook, and anytime he would encounter someone with a funny name, he would write that down and try to incorporate that in his story. And he used a lot of real life instances to mold these stories. So Christmas Carol, a lot of those elements came from Dickens' life. Same with Great Expectations. Dickens, of course, grew up in poverty, tries to better himself, and so you'll see that come out. Also, Dickens' style, he uses repetition, same concepts, okay, antithetical images. So you'll have like the really rich Mrs. Havisham or Estella, very pretty, and that'll be juxtaposed with Pip, who is very poor, who is very coarse, very common. Okay, so he liked to use those antithetical images, and he also liked to use adjectives. So he wouldn't just describe a brown paper bag. It would be the brown, rumpled, crinkly, set off to the side paper bag. He has very long sentences, and he uses some archaic words, but it's still very readable. Okay, so don't get discouraged when you start reading this and you see words like hulks or whittles. Okay, you may have to look that up. Those are just words that were commonplace at the time. But a lot of the social issues that he talks about still prevalent today. The idea of abuse, the idea of poverty versus wealth, social class distinctions, okay, those come across very evident within this work. So what you will be doing, okay, you're only reading the first 19 chapters, all right? I've included the link to the book, or you can just Google, it's free. Just do Great Expectations PDF or Great Expectations Read Online, something like that. Go to the Apple Books. You can probably find it for free on there. You're only reading the first 19 chapters. I know that seems like a lot, but they go really quickly. Like you look at chapter 1 and you scroll down, it's not that much. We're only doing the first 19 because that's enough for you to get the basic idea of the story. We don't have enough time to read all, I believe it's like 58, 59 chapters of the book. We're not going to do that. Okay, so don't freak out when you see how many chapters there are. I'll give you a synopsis of what happens later on. But for our purposes, for this literary analysis, 19 chapters is enough for you to have a basis for your paper. So the essay will be based on this first 19 chapters in Great Expectations. Okay, keep in mind, anytime you write the title of a novel, it's italicized. It's not put in quotes. It's not underlined. It's italicized. Okay, Great Expectations, not The Great Expectations or Great Expectation. It's Great Expectations, written by Charles Dickens. 3 to 4 pages for this essay. Okay, at least 3 full pages. The 4th page will be your works cited page. And this all will be in MLA formatting. So look at the sources that I've given you for MLA formatting, consult those. Make sure your essay is Times New Roman, 12-point font, etc. You will have a thesis, okay? Now, if you look, I've given you some samples, okay, that you can look online or you can come up with your own. If you look in the instruction, there's a couple thesis statements. So something along the lines, in Great Expectations, Charles Dickens uses Pip as an archetype of what most adolescent males experience in their early life. So archetype, that's a literary device. Okay, so that essay would focus on Pip as kind of this object, this type for what most adolescent males experience in their early life. So that's something I have to prove, and I prove that through quotes from the book. The idea of the poverty cycle is best exemplified through Pip's experiences in Charles Dickens' Great Expectations. So you notice I'm mentioning the author in the book in all of these. In Dickens' novel, Great Expectations, the characters Pip, Miss Havisham, and Estella are victims of circumstances beyond their control. The novel Great Expectations shows how adolescent life goals can be formulated during trying and traumatic experiences. So those are some examples to kind of guide you. You can use one of those, that's fine, or you can come up with your own. And as you read, think about examples, think about quotes that you can use to support that. You have to have a thesis, for this. You have to have a claim. It needs to be in your introduction. I don't want any book reports. I don't want a play-by-play. Don't say this happened and Pip did this and she said that and he did that and this, that, and the other. It needs to focus on your thesis. If I wanted to know what happened in the book, I would read the book, and I have read the book and I know what happened. Okay, so don't tell me what happened. You can have a little bit of plot summary as it relates to your thesis. Okay, so be very careful with that. You will have 2 sources for this paper. So you already have one. You've got the book itself. You need to incorporate another one. Now, this source does not necessarily have to be about Great Expectations. If you're talking about poverty, this could be a source that has information on poverty that you can work into what you're saying in your thesis. So don't think that your source has to talk about Great Expectations. Make sure this is a reliable, credible, good source. I don't want the editors of the Encyclopedia Britannica, okay? No encyclopedia sources, no Schmoop sources, or Wikipedia, or SparkNotes, or eNotes, or any other quick reference websites. Stay away from those, okay? Find something that is credible. You may want to use nclive.org, use the libraries database. Heaven forbid, you may even go and find an actual book, okay, that talks about something that's related to Great Expectations or what you're talking about in your thesis. That would be good to use too. You only need to have 2 sources: the book itself, Great Expectations, and then another outside source. So when I say the book, Great Expectations, obviously all of you are probably using an online version of it. You would cite it as a website, okay? Go to Purdue OWL, their website, the online writing library at Purdue OWL. They will show you how to cite a website, okay, that has a book. Okay, organization. Make sure you have an introduction with the thesis statement. You need to have several body paragraphs in which you discuss the topic in depth, okay? In those body paragraphs, you need quotations, cited. You have to have in-text citations, okay, to support what you were saying. Provide analysis and evaluation of the quotes, okay? So kind of have like a quotation sandwich. You introduce the quote, you have the quote itself, and then, so what? What is that quote? How does that tie into what you're saying with your thesis? This is not a summary. This is an analysis, okay? Use MLA format throughout. And when we're writing about literature, there are a couple things that you need to keep in mind. One, you need to write in the present tense. Okay, so you would say, in Dickens' Great Expectations, Pip visits, okay, Miss Havisham. Not Pip visited, but Pip visits Miss Havisham, okay? Or Joe talks to Biddy. Not talked, okay, not visited, not past tense. Everything needs to be in present tense. Why? Because it's like this continuum of the story is timeless, okay? So when you're reading it, it's almost like it happens then, even though it was written and takes place 150 years ago or more, okay? Second, as always, do not use first-person language. Do not say I, me, my. Do not say I think Pip or my estimation, nothing, okay? No first-person language. No second-person language. Do not say, in our world around us, we need to think about how poverty affects us. No, we're not using second-person language. No you, your, yourself, our, we, us, none of that. Everything has to be in third person. Do not use contractions. Contractions are slang, that's informal language. Do not use this in your literary analysis. Use literary terms to discuss your points. Talk about characters, themes, setting, rhyme, point of view, alliteration, symbols, okay, whatever fits in with what you're talking about in your thesis. Do not confuse characters' viewpoints with authors' viewpoints. Don't say Dickens thought Estella was a cruel young girl. No, Pip thought that. The character Pip thought that, not Charles Dickens. All right, be careful with that. Make sure you read the instructions carefully, okay? And go ahead and dive into this book. So we're just doing the first 19 chapters. If you have questions about the book, let me know. Do not use SparkNotes. Don't use those sites to try to skim and summarize. You're going to miss a lot, and that's really going to hinder you when you try to find quotes. If you haven't read, okay, and you just look at a summary on Wikipedia or SparkNotes, whatever, you're not going to be able to remember or know where the quotes are that you need to use to support your thesis, and that's going to bring your grade down, okay? So keep that in mind. Make sure you read, just do a little bit at a time, and you will get there. If you need questions, as always, or if you have questions, need help, let me know, okay? And I'll be happy to help you. Thank you.